well over $10,000 on Apple products since I started getting dragged into their ecosystem a few years back. And over the 15 odd products that I currently own, I've identified a few that I can categorically say I regret buying. My goal with this video is to share those products with you, the reason behind why I bought them in the first place, and why they've ended up falling to the wayside or not being used as much as I thought. Hopefully saving you some money and time in the process. Let's get right into it. Largely, I've had a great experience buying Apple products over the years. However, there have been a number of products that have stood out as regrets. First off, and maybe quite controversially, the Apple Watch. It may be Apple's best-selling product of all time, one that really helped take the company to the next level and ultimately gain that infamous trillion-dollar status, but it simply wasn't for me, and I still do not get the hype. Before you lose your mind, let me explain. So, the reason I went and bought the Apple Watch SE and not one of the leading models at the time was because I was hesitant from the word go. I thought that if I got the SE, at least getting buyer's remorse on the lesser model wasn't as bad as forking out a few hundred more for the top of the range model, and my thinking being I wouldn't hate myself as much. I opted for the black 44mm one, and to be different and potentially due to my Kevin O'Leary watching habits at the time, I went with a bright red strap. For the first few months I generally liked it. I was wearing it pretty often, not all the time, but I was making good use out of Apple's fitness app where you and your friends can challenge each other and see who burns the most calories over a period of time. That part of it I found a serious benefit to. Once you're not going crazy and going out at 11 p.m. to do 10,000 steps because you forgot to close your exercise rings. Don't worry, I've been there. One of the biggest issues I ran into, no pun intended, was the strap itself. It wasn't comfortable and I do have bigger wrists, but the strap does accommodate for bigger wrists without issue. It's almost like the material itself that it's made from just caused some discomfort. Anyway, that aside, the next thing I noticed was the terrible battery life. And if you're like me and into your mechanical watches, you'll know that after wearing an automatic watch for days at a time, you will have to wind that watch up, but the Apple Watch just seems so unnatural to take it off and put it on charge for a few hours. You really need to plan when you charge it into your day or have a regular routine, otherwise you feel you're missing out on steps, closing your rings and so on. I think if Apple sorted out the battery life and got it to a really good place, they'd be even more popular than they already are. Another thing I noticed about the Apple Watch was that after those few months, that new shiny feeling had worn off, and I started to realize that the watch itself is packed full of gimmicks and features that I'd never use. I also find it bad enough that I get emails and notifications on my phone. The last thing I want is for my wrist to be vibrated out of it most of the day. It's definitely quite distracting when you are in the middle of driving, for example. You may be thinking to yourself that there is a quick solution to this, and that's turning all those things off. But my challenge to that is, what is the point of having an Apple Watch then? There are other options out there for solely tracking fitness than the Apple Watch, so I would explore those instead. Fast forward to a few years of ownership and the watch finds itself lying dead somewhere around the house, and I've gone back to wearing my mechanical watches. Now, if you're not into the real watches per se, then this may not be a temptation or even a consideration for you, but I find that they are a much better option for me personally, and as a result the SE hasn't got used at all in the last 6 months. In fact, I charged it up today just to make this video. Once I'm done recording it and get all my b-roll, it will return to its resting place. If you are considering any of the Apple Watches in the lineup, my recommendation here is for you to go into an Apple store if you can, try it on and really consider if you are going to use it, if you're an active person or what you'll be using it for. Personally, I've learned my lesson and I won't be buying one again. Next up is an item that I still use today but less than I imagined, and that is the Apple Magic Keyboard. I went for the longer version with the numpad and its space gray variant. First off, why did I get this keyboard? The simple answer is I was using a MacBook Pro at the time as a desktop PC when I got home from college and wanted the same typing experience as my laptop while it was docked and connected to external displays. Straight away out of the box, you'll notice the hefty price tag associated with the keyboard, especially as a student, and let's just say I probably got my hopes up a little too much. This was before they introduced the Touch ID to the keyboard, so we're not comparing like for like with today's version, but my keyboard arrived in very impressive packaging as usual. The keyboard build quality was also excellent and super solid. It connected flawlessly and seamlessly to my devices, and I got to using it straight away. I initially liked the shallow feel to the keyboard and how thin it was, but after a few hours of use, I noticed my hands were quite fatigued using the board. I did brush it off at the time though, and I continued using the board as an everyday item, but I did find that the problem with fatigue followed it. Maybe that's just me, but it was quite the off-put from using the board. Today I still use it and it's perfect for editing, writing scripts and the likes for short periods of time, but let's give Apple the benefit of the doubt and say they've improved their current switches. Now I don't know if they have, I haven't used their latest version. It brings me on to the next problem with the keyboard, and that is the lack of backlight on the model. This model being space grey, the stealthy and cool aspect is great until you're working at night. If you don't touch type without looking at the keyboard, it's going to be impossible to see what you're doing. The battery life is great on the board, and I feel it was just a cost saving measure for Apple excluding the backlight capability, because if they had it built in, it wouldn't impact the battery that much. I charge the keyboard maybe once every few months, and that's constant use after work sometimes, or definitely on the weekend when I'm editing these videos. I don't really have a recommendation here, as I do still use it and it's basically paid for itself out of the usage I've gotten from it over the years. That said, I would struggle to recommend this to someone. I'd try going for a mechanical hybrid keyboard that you can swap between your Apple products and also Windows ones. There's plenty of affordable and premium keyboards out there that you can custom build yourself or buy pre-built that will work perfectly. If you would like me to do a video on the Apple products that I don't regret buying, let me know in the comments below. But last but not least, although it did get me through my degree, it caused me to regret the purchase very shortly after, and that is the 2017 base model MacBook Pro. If you'd like to know why you shouldn't buy a base model MacBook, check out this video here. If you'd like to find out if it's worth buying the M2 Mac Mini in 2024, check out this video here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.